What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're ready for some 53-man roster discussion. The Dallas Cowboys, like every team in the NFL, officially submitting their initial 53-man roster on Tuesday, rather by Tuesday's 3 p.m. Central Standard Time deadline. It is 3:25 as I record this for you. Always important to give you that context because things are ever changing. It has been a crazy week already. Through not even the first 2 full business days, but with CeeDee Lamb getting his extension finally from the Dallas Cowboys. Had an interview with Robert Griffin III that dropped earlier today for me, once again on Tuesday for whatever day you're watching this here on the channel. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. We are the most subscribed to individual team channel across the SB Nation universe. That means a lot to us. We have established a goal for the 2024 season to get to 30,000 subs. So please help us in our march to 30,000. If you want to follow me along my individual journey on social media, you can do so, of course. Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Email, as always, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. I mentioned it's been a busy week. Mentioned CeeDee Lamb, RG3. Got another guest that is supposed to come on Friday, so fingers crossed that everything works out there. But the biggest thing this week, of course, was the finalization of the 53-man roster for the Dallas Cowboys. So let's go ahead and take a look at the initial. Once again, always important to add that clarifier or qualifier because things can and will change. But as we're talking right now until Wednesday, when things kind of process waivers and whatnot, injured reserve, all that kind of stuff, these are the members of the 2024 Dallas Cowboys. At quarterback, no real shock. Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance. I know that people feel different ways about Trey. It was never likely that the Cowboys weren't going to carry him on their 53-man roster, especially in today's day and age where it makes sense to suit up a third quarterback on game day without them counting towards your active game day 46-man roster. There used to be a rule where you could elevate a practice squad quarterback for that third kind of ghost quarterback, but the NFL did away with that actually very recently, the last couple of days. But nevertheless, it never was likely that Dallas was going to move on from him, so that's pretty chalk. At running back, you'll note that Zeke Elliott, Rico Dowdle leading the way like we all thought and imagined they would once the Cowboys kind of put this group together over the course of the spring. And Deuce Vaughn did make the 53-man roster for the second year in a row. No Malik Davis, no Royce Freeman. Yes, the Cowboys reportedly working out Dalvin Cook. We'll see if he factors into this conversation in any way, shape, or form. But for now, these are the running backs on the roster. I have done a lot of material on Dalvin Cook, obviously, to this point. Did a Bleacher Report stream on Monday afternoon. For what it's worth, if you are curious for my opinion, and I imagine you are, because why else would you be here? Love you, by the way. I think you kind of have what Dalvin Cook offers in Zeke Elliott. I mean, if you're going to get rid of Deuce Vaughn for Dalvin Cook, that would be weird to me because Deuce offers you something different. That's the whole point of Deuce Vaughn. And I wrote an article about this. If you're going to carry Deuce Vaughn, and the Cowboys have done so, you have to use him. You have to lean into his different skill sets. So fingers crossed over there as well that they wind up doing that. Also, Hunter Lipke, we've put him here under the running backs, clearly a fullback, but did make the roster as well. Moving on, this has got a lot of people spooked. And let me zoom in here, actually, so you can see this a little bit better. Wide receiver, that's the most I can go. So we'll stay right here at this this depth perception. There's no CeeDee Lamb. Do not panic. All right. I had an Instagram post about this and a TikTok post. There's already people in the comments freaking out. Do not be one of them. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to educate you. The wide receivers currently on the 53-man roster for the Dallas Cowboys: Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy, congratulations to the rookie, did make the team, and Kevontae Turpin. The reason you are not seeing CeeDee Lamb's name is because when he did not report to training camp, when he was holding up before the deal that was brokered officially finally on Monday, that was signed and consummated on Tuesday, the Cowboys placed CeeDee Lamb on the reserve/did not report list. The reason the Cowboys did this was to generate a roster spot, obviously while they were at training camp, still looking at different bodies, et cetera, et cetera. So CeeDee, in a technical sense, is not on the 53-man roster. He will, of course, be reinstated, so everything will be okay. But if we're talking about the literal 53-man roster right now, he's not there. That's why you're not seeing his name in actuality. Let's move on to the tight ends. 4 made the roster this year for the Cowboys. Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker. We knew that was going to happen, obviously. I know people have thoughts about Schoonmaker. John Stevens Jr. and Brevin Spanford, who the Cowboys spent a sizable amount of money on in undrafted free agency, making the roster. That gives them 4 to work with this season. You will note that Peyton Hendershot is not here. Kind of an interesting day for him. It was initially reported on Tuesday afternoon by NFL Network's Tom Pelissero that the Cowboys were going to be cutting Peyton Hendershot. And then in the 11th hour, with about 45 minutes to go before the deadline to get to 53, reported also by Pelissero that the Cowboys were sending Peyton Hendershot to the Kansas City Chiefs for a late round conditional pick. I need to pull that up right here to tell you. It is a very late conditional sort of thing, but a trade nonetheless. And something is better than nothing, as people often say. Shout out to a friend of the show, Nick Harris from DallasCowboys.com. The conditions, the Cowboys will receive a 7th round draft selection in 2026, which is like 12 years from now. If 1, Hendershot is on the 53-man roster for 5 games this season, that would be Kansas City's 53-man roster, or 2, Hendershot is on the 46-man game day roster for 3 games this season. So if Hendershot suits up 3 times for the Kansas City Chiefs, we are good to go. We are golden. We get another 7th round draft pick in 2026. We party. It's a good time. So those are your 4 tight ends. Let's get to the offensive line. The starters there, not a real shocker. Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, and even the depth, not shocking in any way, shape, or form, except for the end, for a different reason than you may be thinking. Brock Hoffman, a very valuable interior piece, as is TJ Bass. I'm wondering if Awesome Richards is maybe kind of the swing tackle that we're not talking enough about, but that's a conversation for another day. Matt Waletzko, people forget, he was actually the person taken with the 5th round pick that was received in the Amari Cooper trade, making the roster yet again. And Chuma Edoga is on the active 53-man roster at the moment. And the reason I bring this up is, and I've talked about this in videos to kind of prep people for this, in the past, when you had a player who was hurt, let me take this off the screen for you momentarily. When you had a player who was hurt, we used Michael Gallup as an example the other day when he was coming off of his ACL, and you wanted to put them on injured reserve, you had to wait until after the 53-man roster was set in order to maintain eligibility to bring them back during the regular season. So when Michael Gallup was coming back and the Cowboys went through the moment that we're kind of in the middle of, not kind of, we're actually in the middle of right now, they had to carry Michael Gallup initially just to put him on injured reserve so that they could bring him back during the season when he was ready. The NFL has slightly modified these rules, and you are now eligible to place 2 players on injured reserve on the front side of 53-man roster finalization that still maintain eligibility to be brought back during the season. The Cowboys have done this with Deron Bland. So when we get to the corners, you won't see Bland's name. We thought they were going to do this with Chuma Edoga, but the Cowboys must feel like he is closer to returning than maybe was initially expected. Who knows? But even then, it's not like he's going to be a starter for this team. At least we don't think. But either way, Chuma Edoga, according to another friend of the show, Bobby Belt of 105.3 The Fan, is expected to be placed on injured reserve on Wednesday. It is my personal assumption that that is the roster spot the Cowboys will generate in order to bring back and activate CeeDee Lamb. Got it? Good. Let's keep going. Defensive line, Michael Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Nealon, Tyrus Wheat making the team. You know that the Cowboys love to kind of have these players that surprise and shock. Tyrus Wheat appears to be that this season. Congratulations to him. Osa Odigizua, Mozzie Smith, Chauncey Golston, and then, of course, Jordan Phillips and Linval Joseph. The one that surprised people earlier today on Tuesday, among the first reported roster cuts of the day for the Cowboys, was Carl Lawson, who they obviously brought in, like 5 minutes ago, it feels like. Definitely, a bit of a weird thing, but it was reported by ESPN's Todd Archer that Carl Lawson could be somebody they bring back, put on the practice squad, use some of the, elevations that they're allowed to throughout the course of the regular season. But for what it's worth, the Cowboys are also, according to Archer, bringing in Tyus Bowser, the veteran free agent, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens, who did not play at all last year. So Cowboys still tinkering, still clearly not 100% happy with the way things are there. But this is the group as things currently stand. Let's move to the linebacker spot. Nothing really surprising. I do think that Buddy Johnson's inclusion is, a little bit of, maybe not necessarily something we predicted, but Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, Maris Liufau, Damone Clark, all very chalk things, and Buddy Johnson. Nice group. This has been a weak point on the roster for some time, obviously, and something that we're hoping that Mike Zimmer can rectify for the Dallas Cowboys. So there are 5 true classic linebackers, none of this converted safety stuff, the way the Cowboys were dealing with under Dan Quinn, although worth mentioning that DeMarvion Overshown did play play safety early on during his days in Austin at the University of Texas. At corner, you will note once again no DaRon Bland because he was placed, on injured reserve. So we've got Trayvon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, Andrew Booth. Keeman Hall, I think we all thought was maybe a name that was going to sneak on in the aftermath of the Bland injury, just like we thought with Eric Scott Jr., but not the case. This entire time, if you read my work, if you watch my work, I've been placing Izzy Mukuamu under safeties, but the Cowboys have placed him under corner here, so I'm going to abide by their designations. That's why Israel Mukuamu's there, and he might be the reason why there is no Eric Scott Jr., why there is no Keeman Hall, because the Cowboys feel comfortable enough with Izzy's flexibility, his versatility, his position flexibility. I think this is definitely a solid enough group to get the Cowboys, obviously, to whatever point in time DaRon Bland ultimately does return. I've speculated, again, personal speculations, that DaRon could be out maybe through the week 7 bye for the Cowboys, and there is not necessarily a murderer's row of quarterbacks that the Cowboys are going to face between now and then. If you're curious, the quarterbacks that Dallas will face over the course of their first 6 weeks of the regular season: Deshaun Watson, obviously, next week in Cleveland. After that, back-to-back games at home against Derek Carr Saints, Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, on the road against Daniel Jones, on the road against either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, and then at home against Jared Goff's Lions before the bye. So again, if the Cowboys can get to that bye without needing to bring DaRon Bland back, that's a very difficult sentence to say, DaRon Bland back. It's like the episode of Friends, why would you want your blue blazer black? Very similar sort of circumstance. But either way, if they get there, that is a victory in my mind. So 5 corners now, amazingly. Only 3 veterans. Obviously, DaRon Bland would be part of it, but veterans of the Cowboys, I should say. Andrew Booth, clearly an NFL veteran. At safety, there are 4 members. Izzy Mukuamu not here because he's at corner. And again, very chalk. Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Marquise Bell having an incredible preseason, and Wanye Thomas has just impressed so much throughout his short career with the team. Very nice to see. And finally, 4 specialists. No roster gymnastics for the Cowboys. Sometimes we've seen them cut CJ Goodwin or Brian Anger or Trent C., whoever the long snapper was, in an effort to sneak somebody on because of those injured reserve rules that we talked about, the way they used to be in the past. But Brandon Aubrey, Brian Anger, Trent C., CJ Goodwin, all a part of the 53-man roster as things currently stand. You love to see it. Nice, neat, organized. That is the group, and it is very chalk all the way around. I really am not that surprised by anything. If anything did kind of stun me or make me go, that's interesting, it was the fact that Chuma Edoga was not placed on injured reserve on the front side of things the way that DaRon Bland was. But again, Cowboys seem to feel comfortable with their decision-making at this point in time. Deuce Vaughn making it is obviously very exciting. And again, if you're going to carry him on the roster, you have to use him. These are the rules. Please abide by them, Dallas Cowboys. We want this for you so badly, so desperately. This can and will change over the course of the next, call it 48 hours-ish. The Cowboys have a practice on Tuesday. They have a practice on Wednesday. They're obviously going to reinstate CeeDee Lamb and all that fun stuff, get his, kind of contract out in the public and have a great time debuting him at the Star in Frisco, whatever the case may be. So there will be some slight modifications. And as always, we will keep you updated at bloggingtheboys.com, here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, and all over my social profiles. Once again, if you haven't yet, help us get to 30,000 subscribers before the season's over. I'm not going to quite say it yet, but my optimistic goal is before Thanksgiving, but you never know. My son is going to be 3 this year, right before Thanksgiving. So how about 10,000 subscribers for each of his years of life? That would be very cool. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. If email's more your thing, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com is where I can be found. You can also leave a comment down below, and I will do my very best to get to those. Also, like I said, have a video in the channel recapping in the immediate moments of CeeDee Lamb's extension, kind of going through it, experiencing it, the emotions of it. Have an interview with Robert Griffin III that dropped earlier on Tuesday. You can go check that out. And like I said, we're supposed to have a fun interview later on across the rest of this week as well. And of course, we have all sorts of things coming up because it's football season, and that means that we are very, very busy. But thank you so much for giving us some of your time, because I know you're busy. I promise to continue to earn it. And yeah, thanks so much for hanging out. We know you got places to be. And so yeah, see you next time.